Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory be to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakah Kodash. And I want to say double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and blessings to the hopeful elect, out there listening and learning and teaching this word in sincerity and truth in the hopes that we may edify and feed the lambs of Yahweh Shai, especially in these last days. And, this is pretty much a video, going out there to, anyone that puts faith or trust in this man's fraudulent money system, where you have these banksters that got together and created the Federal Reserve or fractional reserve banking system in order to loan out money, and charge interest on the money that they were printing and loaning out at the same time as you put your hard-earned cash into the bank, which doesn't really exist. This fiat currency doesn't really exist. It's not really real money. You've been sold a lie. And pretty much the world is beginning to see America for what it really is, and what fiat currency is for what it really is. And this is the reason why you're seeing the price of gold starting to surge. And they're even talking about silver also, which Elder Apostle Tahar has been, and many other elders, brothers, Akim, pushing the same message, that this is not real money. Fiat currency is not real money. In fact, the word fiat, goes back to the, Latin term or phrase, let it be so. And it's just an imaginary, the dollar only has weight depending on, the collective belief within that dollar bill, But once the faith in the dollar bill starts to wane, what you're going to start to see, is the global economic collapse. Because I believe, on a global scale, over 90% of transactions involve the US dollar because it's the world reserve currency at the moment. But as you can see here on this video, clear value tax, de-dollarization, the world is ditching the US dollar, and this is being done by design behind the scenes. Alright, because the elites, they're ready to crash this global economy. Do you think this is happening by coincidence? No. The elites are ready to clash this global economy because what they want to do now is to push out that great reset. CBDCs, digital currencies, and pretty much connect people to the Internet of Things. And your method of buying and selling is going to be through you having that chip. And once they collapse the global economy, they can start again, out with the old, in with the new. You will own nothing and be happy, as the saying goes. World Economic Forum. And pretty much the people will be begging for survival. They'll be begging for peace and safety. But as they beg for peace and safety, what's going to happen? They're going to get caught out. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So there's going to be no escape, man. The message that we're coming with, and that we've been coming with, is that all of you people out there, you believe in this man's system. To what end? Scripture says, though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. Everyone that trusts in this man's system, they're pretty much sailing out there, not a piece of land in sight, in open seas, and there's a hole in the boat, and the boat is going down, and there's going to be no help. There's going to be no saving them. Okay? So let me just play you a little bit of this video here. Um, and if I can say, fair use, fair use. I'm not making any money for this from this video at all. This is purely for educational purposes. Again, fair use, fair use. I'm not making any profit from this video. So let me just go ahead, and this is to clear value tax and whatever videos that he likes to, or he's gonna put in there as well to get his point across. But he made some good points in this video. And the first point that I want to make is about here.
Countries with economic sanctions. Okay, so we get some good perks for being the world's reserve currency. However, countries have been losing faith in the US dollar. But why? Why is this happening? Why is there a loss of faith? I'll tell you it's for many reasons, but here are some. So first of all, it's because of the fiscal irresponsibility. Basically, the government, in conjunction with the Federal Reserve, has been printing trillions of dollars to finance government overspending. I mean,
and that's when you get hyperinflation, because hyperinflation, comes from not just the printing of money, all right, but when that money gets spent into circulation, when it gets used and pumped back into circulation, that's when it's sort of like, I don't know, having some apple juice and constantly adding water to the cup till it overflows and there's nothing but water left. There's no more apple juice left. The sweetness of the beverage is gone. It's just pure water, and it's completely diluted and it's gone. And that's what's happening to the strength of the dollar bill at the moment. Going back to fiscal irresponsibility. All right, in fact, let's look up that word fiscal and see what that means. Okay, fiscal, pertaining to public revenue, right? From the Latin fiscalis, of or belonging to the state treasury. Originally, money bag, purse, basket made of twigs in which money was kept. Okay, so you have this irresponsible demon that's in charge of printing money, right? And then putting it into the money bag and acting like it's real money, acting like the money has the same value. But that's basically, they would call you counterfeit. They would call you a fraudster if you were to do that, in your own home. If you was to print dollar bills and spend it into circulation, they'd call you, they call you a criminal, but then they can do it. And, that's why the scriptures speak about the joy of the hypocrite, right? In the book of Job, 20 and 4. See, when you go into like certain words, like, it will just lead you to a bunch of different scriptures, that you can speak on to chant down Babylon, because this is the time that we're in, man. We ain't holding back. All right, we're at the end of this thing, and our job and our duty is to sound the alarm, be watchmen, and to warn the people, tell our people what's going on, whether they will hear, whether they will forbear. This is Job 20 and 4. Knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon the earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the wicked is who? Esau, Edom. The elites of the wicked, Esau, Edom, they are responsible for all of this money printing and the global economic collapse behind the scenes. All right, because they want to push out their new world order, because they want to play the Most High, and they want to chip people, and they want total control over the people. All right, and that's why, it's called order ab chaos, man. Remember, order through chaos. And this is just another chaotic method that's being used by the wicked elites, to crash the global economy in order to push out their NWO. It says, and the joy of the hypocrite, but for a moment. All right, and a hypocrite is just an actor, and that's exactly what they are. They're hypocrites. So this de-dollarization, the world is ditching the US dollar from the channel clear value tax. This is what I'm playing it on. going into fiscal irresponsibility, dealing with the money bag, treasury, and the irresponsibility of how they're dealing with the money bag. All this money printing, quantitative easing, you know, um, which is going to lead to hyperinflation. Okay.
Still running a deficit of 7% of GDP. It needs to be at 3% to be reasonable. The second reason is the U.S. debt crisis. So the U.S. government is now at a critical point in an unsustainable debt crisis with
They're in an unsustainable debt. Sorry, man, I got to laugh because what does the scripture speak about that in Habakkuk? Ladeth himself with thick clay, right? This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 6. It says, "Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long?" And this is why you're seeing, even with China, because America hit China with all these tariffs. And China, they fired back, said, look, we will fight to the end. We've gone, we will go another 5,000 years. I saw the video, and even when I saw it, I was at work. And I was so pumped, I even showed it to my work colleague. And I said, have you seen this, man? What China's saying about these tariffs? Because China was saying, we will go another 5,000 years. And they're not playing no games. You know, so, pretty much, and they make a lot of money of America, because America is nothing but a consumer nation. And, you get certain privileges, being in the land of America when you're dealing with finance, right? Because it's the world reserve currency. But now that they're losing faith, now that there's global loss of faith in the world reserve currency, what you're starting to see is the cracks in this whole. You start to see the cracks in America, and people are starting to take up that taunting proverb, right? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Now that word thick clay goes back to ibatyat in the Hebrew, which we've been doing videos on this. Yeah, there you go. In the Hebrew, ibatyat. All right, weight of pledges, heavy debts, and that's what America deals with, heavy debts. All right, so what this channel is going into here, talking about, the state of America. Let's take this back.
reasonable. Basically, the government, in conjunction with the Federal Reserve, has been printing trillions of dollars to finance government overspending, percent to be reasonable. The second reason is the U.S. debt crisis. So the U.S. government is now at a critical point in an unsustainable debt crisis with worsening interest expense.
Unsustainable debt crisis with worsening, right?
Point. In an unsustainable debt crisis with worsening interest expense.
Interest expense. All right, and then to top it off, last but not least, tariffs. All right, which we're gonna go into that. All right, but the thing is, the fact of the matter is, it's actually in the scriptures. All right, heavy debts. That's that abatya. So when the scripture says, "Shall not all these take up a taunting proverb against him," saying how long, right? To him that ladeth himself with heavy debts. Put the word heavy debts in there. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and shall awake that vex thee? And thou shalt be for booties unto them, because thou hast spoiled many nations, and the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. And because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and all that dwell therein. So, America means bitter, by the way. Okay, and America was built in a very bloody and violent fashion. All right, when you want to deal with, the transatlantic slave trade, when you want to deal with the bloodshed of the saints, even that alone, America has to pay for. You see, because this devil, they've been living high. Like the scriptures speak about servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. That's talking about the children of Israel, pretty much having a role reversal with the wicked. Who's the wicked goes back to the Edomites, which are really the basis of men. And that's why we got to fear the Lord, because the Lord put them in charge, or gave them the power of the whole earth. And look what they're doing to the earth, man. Okay, spoiling nations. All right, building cities with blood, which is going to go into Habakkuk 2 and 12. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establisheth a city by iniquity. And America has been founded on blood. Okay, and in fact, there's a book that was recommended years ago by first I heard speak on it was Elder Apostle Bar. It was a book by Ralph Ginsberg called "100 Years of Lynchings." Let's see if I can get the front page. Okay, is of lynching by Ralph Ginsberg. I believe it is. Okay, and this is America. All right, this is the front page, and I've actually got this book. I've actually read it out at a camp before because I was so taken back by the front page as well. But it was really the title that got me first because when I heard about it, then I saw the image of the front page, and I was like, "Don't no way! Look at that! That's America. That's a map of America dripped and drenched in blood, and the blood of who? The blood of the saints." All right, so America has to pay, man. These Edomites, they have to pay for what they've done to the chosen people, which are the Israelites. Okay, so this de-dollarization, the world ditching the U.S. dollar, we've been telling you that this is coming, and this ain't, man, because all this fiat currency, man, these tokens that you run around that you can spend in this giant fun affair that Esau's created. You might go and watch the football. You might go watch the boxing game. You might go, to a stadium and jump up and down with a beer in your hand, spill all over the place, with a hot dog in the other hand. Looking stupid as hell with a big ass hat or with a fucking big ass glove. With your favorite player's name on it. Nothing but bread and circuses as you're spending the tokens that don't, amount to no real wealth. They're not really backed by gold and silver because gold and silver is real money. And when you know, you run a system of tokens, you know, it's coming to the point now where countries are losing faith in them tokens, man. You know what I'm saying? So this whole system is a lie, man, and the Lord is exposing it because we're at the end of this man's system. So this is really a beautiful time to be alive indeed, to witness the downfall of this kingdom. Now I made a statement about real money being gold and silver because the American dollar is not backed by gold or silver. All right, because you had something called the Nixon shock. In fact, let's pull up and moving gold. Was it 1973? Was it right? Nixon and the end of Bretton Woods. All right, which the Bretton Woods, I believe, that was the time when, was it around or after World War II when they got the nations together to pretty much bolster the belief in the American dollar. To pretty much make the U.S. dollar the world reserve currency in exchange for these nations' gold. Okay, and I believe that was in mid 40s. I think it was. It's been a while since I looked this one up. 1944, right? The Bretton Woods Conference, held in July 1944, established a new international monetary system. You see that? Often referred to as the Bretton Woods system. The system, created by representative of 44 nations, aimed to stabilize exchange rates, prevent competitive devaluations, all right, and promote global economic growth. Also led by the establishment of the IMF and the World Bank, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The US dollar, look at the gold standard. The US dollar was convertible to gold at a fixed price, serving as a reserve currency for other nations. So that's how it was then. But then you fast forward to 1970 onwards, right? What happened? Nixon and the end of the Bretton Woods system came into to effect. On August 15th, 1971, President Richard M. Nixon announced his new economic policy program to create a new prosperity without war, known colloquially as the Nixon shock. Marked the beginning of the end of the Bretton Woods system, or fixed exchange rates established at the end of World War II. All right, but what would it do? Okay, under the Bretton Woods system, the external values of foreign countries were fixed in relation to the US dollar, which we just read about the Bretton Woods. the gold standard, right? Whose value was in turn expressed in gold at the congressionally set price of $35 per ounce. By the 1960s, a surplus of US dollars caused foreign aid, military spending, and foreign investment threatened this system, and the United States did not have enough gold to cover the volume of dollars in worldwide circulation at the rate of $35 per ounce. So they couldn't keep up. And these nations started asking for their gold back. As a result, the dollar was overvalued, right? Just like it is now, it's overvalued. And that's why through this, monetary system or this money printing system, you best believe the dollar is all the more so overvalued now. Okay. In fact, let me go into who removed the gold standard in the US. The government held, it says President Richard Nixon. The government held under the $35 per ounce until August 15th, 1971, when President Nixon announced that the United States would no longer convert dollars into gold at a fixed value, thus completely abandoning the gold standard. So, the Bretton Woods, 1944, they got them all together, 44 nations, and it was supposed to be a fixed rate. And then all of a sudden, once they got the gold, they said, look, you're, we're going to remove that gold standard now. We're going to abandon that. You can no longer trade $35 per ounce of gold. Okay? So this is how this man works. He's a fraudster. Okay? And the scriptures speak about unjust balances. Let me see. It says, Proverbs 11:1, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. And this man don't deal with just weights. There's another one that I wanted. Unjust weights and measures. This is the one. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 10. It says, diverse weights and diverse measures, both of them are like abomination to the Lord. Both of them are like an abomination to the Lord. So what we're coming to now, we're coming to the time, like in Revelation, the 6th chapter, we're coming to the time of the black horse, man. Okay, a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny. We're coming into the time of hyperinflation, which when you go into that word penny, it was supposed to be a standard daily wage for a Roman soldier. All right, and you got barley and you got wheat. That goes into food. Scriptures speak about, see that thou hurt not the oil and the wine. What do you do with money? You can buy oil, wine with it. So that's dealing with buying food. It's dealing with hyperinflation. And that's the time that we're coming to now. All right, through all of this diverse weights, right, and diverse measures. That's an abomination to the Lord, man. Okay. So these guys, and this is another reason why countries have been losing faith in the US dollar. Okay? So let's play a little bit more of this video here.
And as if those weren't bad enough, to make other countries walk away from the dollar, President Trump imposes tariffs, which is upsetting our allies.
And especially China. And now China, they're saying, look, we're going to fight to the end. All right? And now through TikTok, China is actually exposing all of the things that you buy, right? Whether it be Chanel, whether it be Dior, whether it be Versace, whether it be this and that. It might say it's made in Europe, but at the same time, it's actually made in China. 60% of it, they ship it to these European countries and they stick their labels on them and say that it's made in their country and this and that, but it's really coming from China. So it's really exposing the potholes in this man's system. All right, and the hypocrisy of America, because they are mass consumers. But then they want to go ahead and it's almost like, and I said it's like this analogy that I used earlier when I was in conversation with someone. I said it's almost like, China is like the ultimate, drug dealing salesman selling drugs to America, because America are what, the consumers, and the people that are at the bottom, that consume buying the Chanel bags, buying the Nike, the Adidas, the this, the that. They want to drip, they want to look good, buying the cars to impress the ladies and this, living in an age of decadence, living in an age of affluence and decadence. Right now, all of a sudden, you know, tariffs get slapped on the ones that's feeding the addiction of the common people. And now the common people, because they're so hooked on the drugs, they're starting to itch, they're starting to get crazy. Now people are starting to run to the stores and panic buy because fear that they ain't gonna get their hit no more. you know let's have a look at people panic buying in response to tariffs. Right, look at this. Tariff spark concern over possible Costco panic buying. Okay, tariff war triggers panic buying in the US. Let's have a look at this video and see what comes up here. Oh, oh. Like I said, fair use, fair use. Alright, I ain't making money off this video. Let me put the subtitles on. Oh, it's already on there, but I'm gonna mute this video and I'll play it so we can read through it. She said, actually, I have already started stocking up. Right, this is from CCTV Video News Agency. In fact, let me just play it, man.
Stocking up. My mother has a whole stockpile.
This was filmed, put up April 7th, right? 2025.
And she's panicking, but I told her we're going to be okay as we live in New York City.
But you see, this kind of mind state, we're going to be as okay as we live in New York City. No, that's not true. Because, these woes are coming to a city near you. Let me get 2nd Ezra's 16 and 21. Okay, 2nd Ezra chapter 16 verse 21. You people have no clue, man, and that's why I'm saying you want to bury your head in the sand like this ain't going down, but it's going down, man. Right? 2nd Ezra chapter 16 verse 21 says, "Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case. Even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion." And victuals, it goes back to provisions. Okay? Food or provisions, man. Alright? Food. That's what victuals mean. So behold, food shall be so good cheap upon the earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case. Even then shall evils grow upon the earth. And we're seeing evils grow. And the scripture says, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold, man. Alright, and the more that we see the de-dollarization take place, is the less or the weaker the purchasing power of the dollar becomes. Despite the fact that you got people out there saying that they're going to be okay because they live in New York, but that's not the case. Again, that's an example of peace and safety, and you will be caught out there if that's what you think, because this money is not real money. Okay, again, Genesis chapter 13. Verse 2, and Abraham, right, was very rich in cattle, and in order to have cattle you have to have land, for cattle to graze upon, in silver and in gold. Right, that's real wealth right there. Gold, silver, and to have cattle you need land. So that's our forefather Abraham was rich in cattle, silver, and gold. That's real wealth, and these elites know it. And that's why they've been manipulating the price of gold and silver. That's why they had the Bretton Woods take place. That's why they wanted the nation's gold. That's why they wanted that gold standard. But then they abandoned it. Right? Because when the nations were asking for their gold back, they couldn't keep up. They had no, they couldn't keep up with that gold standard. So they had to abandon it. Hence the Nixon shock. Alright? So this is how this man deals, man. Alright? And America's on borrowed time, alright? It's circling the drain and it's over. Right? It's over with. Okay? It's done.
Well, I think we have to. Yeah, I think we have to. Because otherwise you're going to be in real trouble economically, in debt. Because if you spend more than what you get, that's going to be a lot of trouble. So.
Oh man, you can see the worry in people's faces. You can see the worry in their eyes, man. You can see it, man. People ain't look, man. People are going through some hard times. It's gonna get harder than this. Like, it's going down, man. All right. Tariff war triggers panic buying in the U.S., man. We've been telling you these things are coming, raising public concerns over rising costs. So at the moment, it can seem like you could go to the supermarket and you can get stuff for a reasonable price. But even then, in the background, looming evils are on the increase or on the rise. You know? So it's over for these people, man. It's over, man. Scripture says, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, man. You got people out here committing adultery, eating abominable meats, and so on and so forth, doing abominable, detestable things in the sight of the Lord. Israelites doing detestable things. So the judgment of the Lord, Jacob's trouble is coming, man. You know, Jacob's trouble is just around the corner. Alright, you have definitely been warned. Tariffs raised Amazon prices put up 5 days ago. You know? And not to mention, you still got wars and rumors of wars taking place. You still got, America wanting to bomb the hell out of Tehran, and Tehran or Iran is being, protected and backed by Russia. So you got, man, trouble in Esau's paradise, man. Okay. So let me go from here to 2nd Ezra 6, and I think it should be 22, right? It says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Right? All these supermarkets, all of these, factories where they make things, and where they're storing things, where they've imported things on shipping containers, and they're just sitting in the factories. They're gonna be emptied out, man. The store shelves are gonna be empty, right? And the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man heareth, they shall be suddenly afraid. And at that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies. Okay? So, it's about to pop off, man. Jeremiah 30, verse 5 on down. A voice of trembling and of fear and not of peace, man. We're not in that time of peace and safety. It's over for these people out here.
From China, it's gonna be more expensive. So I don't.
And everything comes from China. Most things come from China. Made in China, made in China, made in China. And that's being exposed on social media, man. It's coming out. And, these people, they've been scammed, They believed in a lie, man. They trusted in the distractions. They trusted in the bread and circuses. That's why the scripture says, see then that you walk circumspectly, as not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. That's in Ephesians 5 and 15. We got to be circumspect, man. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, look, I'm going to leave it there. There's plenty of more scriptures that we can go into on this, of course. But I just wanted to do a quick, I started off going into the economy, and then, which is still part of the economy, but ended up going into Jacob's trouble, man. So maybe, Lord willing, I'll be focusing on Jacob's trouble in another video. It's all down to the spirit, man. Alright, stay tuned to the next time. Shalom to the elect.